Hello, guys. Welcome back to the channel for this kind of special video dealing with movies and box office and stuff. And I like to look at numbers. It's just a hobby of mine, I guess, a preference. But we're not looking just at box office or just at this. We're looking at what the Supergirl movie is, and the fact, it's in the title already. Zack Snyder has posted an image, and I wanted to kind of go over that information with you, that idea. But first, just to say, Supergirl is obviously not doing well in the box office. So let me jump over here, and I think that one's a little different. So you can see right now, less than 75 million worldwide. We're at Tuesday. There is an increase. There's always seems to be an increase in most of these movies. Um, on a Tuesday. Tuesdays usually all the discount days and stuff like that. Some people will wait for that to go see, especially if people are saying it's not a good movie or something like that. Word of mouth has gotten to them, and like, well, okay, I won't see it, opening night, and we'll wait for something. But anyway, there's a jump here. It's expected, obviously, to drop back down again. These are larger drops here. This almost 27%, and the 63% are larger, and the 41 larger drops than Superman. If I pulled up Superman's numbers, you'd see that pretty plainly. And I'm not making some kind of dire thing. I'm just tempering any expectations of somebody that says this is a lot higher. This percentage is a lot higher than most of the time because this has dropped so low. That's really the reason why is because this 3 million is kind of an unexpected low. Uh, well, unexpected to what what you would hope these things would be, and what I would hope these things would be. I'm a DC fan. I really am. I don't hate Marvel. I don't dislike Marvel, but the comics I'm okay with. I like Spider-Man. Okay. But I never became a fan of the Marvel comics. I would see X-Men and stuff like that. You go to the grocery store, I would sit by the comic rack while mom went out and got the food and stuff like that. And then she'd come by, come on, it's time to go. And there'd be X-Men and other things there. And I didn't gravitate toward that, even though I looked at some of those things. And I enjoy the X-Men movies, not everything about these things. The X-Men movies, though, the Fantastic Four, stuff like that. Talking with my son about that stuff, and you can see those videos soon. If they're not up right now, they'll be up soon. But what I'm trying to say is simply I leaned toward and gravitated toward for whatever reason because they were the same artists. They went back and forth between studios and stuff, studios companies, Marvel and DC and stuff like that all the time. You can check that out. I mean, John Byrne, one of my favorites, the man that redid Superman for me and all that. Uh, he he did also Hulk, and he did She-Hulk, and I enjoy those things. I can go over to that and enjoy it mostly for the art, uh, but for DC, I gravitated toward that even without him, just for storytelling that's there with DC. The way that the stories are told and what stories are being told is a different kind of format than Marvel, and fans ought to be able to recognize that. And there then are lots of times fans for one, and they're not really a fan of the other one. That's kind of where I'm at. As far as the comic books go, I'm not really a big fan of X-Men, of Marvel characters, but I greatly enjoy Spider-Man. He would be an exception to that. But if you put Superman comics in front of me, or Spider-Man, and say you got to read only one of them, pick one, I'm gonna read Superman. I'm gonna read Superman. That's who I am. That's what I'm gonna do. But anyway, this is what's going on with it. Now I talked to, and I talked to, I asked questions of AI because I like to get their calculations faster. It's a lot quicker for them to pull up formulas and stuff like that. And I was talking to them, to the AI about him her, whatever it is, it, about Supergirl. What's the current box office? And this was before. This is like Monday before we got the Monday numbers. Worldwide total roughly 62.6 million. That's the opening worldwide total. 25,500,000 uh, international total, and the rest of it was there it is in front of my face. 37.1 million, which is all down. Okay, they were talking about this. Well, at least one or two people were coming out saying this movie is gonna make $1 billion. It's gonna do better than the new Spider-Man movie, Brand New Day. It's gonna outperform it. Somebody did say that. You can look them up. Several YouTubers have put that out and proved that somebody said that. I think that most people were able to temper their expectations away from that and not expect that to happen. They were not going to fall into that kind of category. It's going to make over $1 billion. It's going to make more than Spider-Man Brand New Day, which Spider-Man No Way Home made nearly $2 billion. So it may be that Brand New Day exceeds that because it seems to be pretty well. People are excited for it right now. So just thinking of it in those terms right now, um, that was almost laughable. So just temper your expectations. So what were they really expecting? Well, they're putting this movie together and spending a bunch of money on it, and the numbers changed a bunch of times because it was reported at some point that it cost about the same that Superman did. Superman from 2025, James Gunn's Superman, or as Nerdrotic says, Superman's James Gunn. Uh, and that, according to the official tax documents, which have not been shown to be changed at all, 363.8 million is the total budget, and it went to the points and all that stuff. How much was in Ohio? They're going to get their tax return and stuff like that of that. Um, it's funny because the counter to that has been James Gunn said, "Oh no, that was just some random person that random uh, um, um, assistant or something like that to put those numbers together and came up with a bunch of stuff that they shouldn't have done it." Well, that means that they should amend that tax return or that tax document, right? It's not tax return; it's a document. If they don't amend the tax document, then they're committing fraud, right? I mean, and you're essentially saying that that person was committing fraud by doing this thing. They were given charge to do this too. They were responsible for this. They were the authority to file this document. So I mean, it's not a good response really from James Gunn to say, yeah, there was just some random person that made up a bunch of stuff. It's kind of weird. Um, I mean, I would assume that Ohio could take them to court and say that means you lied. Uh, and in court, he'd have to say whether he lied then or at what point. But I doubt he would do that. Like I said, they may look into it or whatever. Depends if they change things, but whatever. The point is, though, we've not seen anything that was amended. There's nothing been promoted out there. It's just shown. There's nothing been told to us, except it's told to us. We're expected to believe what we're told by somebody who has a track record of saying one thing and then doing something else, or saying one thing and we know it's not true, saying one thing, and so forth. And plain speech calls that person a liar. Uh, Somebody else wants to say it's misrepresenting or they're damage control or they're trying to control the narrative or something like that. I don't really care. Not that much. I care enough to talk about it a little bit and then go on. But let's move past this. Now, the the AI, what it does sometimes is it gives you bad information for some real weird reason. Now, I asked if it had the same legs that Superman had, what would it make? Worldwide. And it said 188 million. It won't break 200 million if it does the same legs, which means has the same drop offs and the same kind of increases as far as the multipliers. So it gave a multiplier of 2.83 relative to the opening weekend, uh, and that kind of calculates. Well, what you really do is you do that, but you figure out the formula from the opening weekend and the total gross, and then what would your multiplier be to get to that total gross. So there's a division problem and all that. And you can figure all that out. That's why I use AI to figure it out faster, and to go ahead and put the number in there. And I ask questions along with it with what about the split between the domestic and the international box office. So it looks up those numbers real quick and it throws those splits in there, and it does the multiplication pretty quick. So, and it gives me a slightly different number when it does this, but it was rounding up earlier, 188 million. It doesn't matter. But the total domestic is expected, if it has the same split of 57.3% to 42.7%, the domestic would be 107.5 million approximately, and 80, a little more than 80.2 million or so international at that split. Now, right now, the domestic is 59.8%. The international is 40.2%. So it is more leaning um, domestic by 2% almost, or maybe more than 2%. Let me look at that one more time. 59.8%. Yeah, more than 2.5% more domestic. So that means at that, if I recalculated this, it's going to be a little, it's, I don't know, probably 70 million, 118 million split domestic higher than the other. That's if it had the same legs as Superman. It's right now projecting lower. It's a decline faster by 10, well, at least 6 to 10% per day, and then the upscale on the Tuesday is higher, but again, the number's lower. It's a deflated number because of the way that it is. It's I can't express it in clear terms except to say the math is um, uh, 7% more of a drop here or there. I had to correct this statement. So let's see if I split it again. There we go. 27% on Sunday of drop as opposed to 17% for Superman. So it's 10%, uh, 10 plus percent more of a drop. And then Monday was even, another difference in the drop. Again, Tuesday up, tomorrow we'll see another drop. And I want to say the numbers um, website does a running drop from a particular like area. It's like how much less it's actually doing. Uh, you'll have to look at it. Just look at the numbers website, and you'll see the two different percentages and figure out what that stands for. So I from that said, well, what would the actual legs be? Well, the legs is going to be closer to 2 times instead of 2.8 times um, for the Superman, and somewhere between 2 times and 2.2 times. Um, that's a difference. That trajectory gives a final domestic total somewhere around 74% or 74 million to 81 million or 82 million, and as a result will likely fall um, 23 to 30 million short of the matching legs of Superman. So the legs difference, the lesser, shorter, meaning the drop off and essentially getting rid of the movie is that much faster. Now that's not that's kind of like factoring in with Superman. There wasn't anything else coming out. There wasn't anything else really coming out for a little while, a couple of weeks or so. It was contending somewhat with Jurassic World, um, Rebirth. Is that what it was? I think that's what it was. But it was contending with that, and there was another movie that was out at the same time. I think that there was some contending with that, but it didn't have a bunch of big releases. This film this week in July, the first week of July, Minions and Monsters comes out, which is going to overtake Toy Story 5, probably. It might not, but it probably will. Drop Supergirl down to number 3. There won't be room for any IMAX screenings or most premium screenings for Supergirl, which is where a lot of makeup is for movies financially nowadays. They give premium screens; it's worth a lot more money, but sometimes like twice, So uh, this is dropping off like fast. It will probably disappear from that, just be on standard screens, and so that percentage drop is gonna gravitate down. They're gonna feel it, and then after, I mean, the next week, there's another. Let's see here. I'm gonna look at the calendar. We got that. Of course, Young Washington's coming out. I'm not saying that's going to do great, but that's going to be something that helps or assists in this movement. Um, let's see, the 10th. Well, there's the Evil Dead Burn, which is for some people horror. They'll be attending to that. Obsession is still staying strong, by the way. Also, there's a Thrash movie, which is a horror movie about sharks, similar to Crawl, which had alligators in a flooded area. So it's a flooded area. It's got these uh, sharks, and it was already on, but it's being released into theaters. It was I want to say it's on Netflix. So you can watch it on Netflix. You can go watch it there. So some people would like to see those things on the big screen, though. But Moana comes out on the 10th. So the next big opening after after this weekend, the next weekend is Moana, the live action Moana, which I'm not necessarily seeing a lot of so-called hype, but these are the kinds of things that children will see. The other Moana, all the Moanas, the Moana, the animated and the next one, and this being, I mean, it seems like I can't tell for 100% until we go see it, but it seems like they're, bringing the cartoon to life, and there wasn't a lot objectionable about the cartoon per se, like in the case of Snow White, for example, with the fiasco that it was. So this is probably going to do very well, similar to Mufasa and stuff like that. Lion King remakes, the Lion King live action, which many people said was not really that great for some reason, which it was much a shot for shot and slight expansion because it is longer. Uh, and I'm fine with it. It's just and there, I guess there's a little bit of controversy involved with it, but it doesn't really matter. But anyway, going on, the Odyssey is the next weekend. So every weekend for these next few weekends is a big opening. Whatever the controversies might be, whatever the possible problems are with these films, whatever these things are, these are big. And then on the 31st is Spider-Man Brand New Day, which is going to obliterate all the rest. Um, well, I say obliterate, and at the same time, um, not Moana per se. I should look up Moana though. Moana. Um, but the Minions movies have been billion-dollar movies, if I'm not mistaken. Moana now, it's close. It's 650 million worldwide. Now in today's dollars, that may be even $1 billion. It's pretty close. Um, there's a lot of factors that go into that. And now Moana 2 over $1 billion. So this live action Moana may well make more than $1 billion. Um, I'm not really talking about Moana, but there's a lot of things that are kind of funny about it. But going on with this, I talked about the shortfall then. I said this shortfall then of making less than 200 million. Realistic projection from 130 to 142 million based on these 2.0 to 2.2 legs descriptions would fall short of their goal by a whole lot. Now, 270 million or 280 million, 90 million, because well, the the debate about the budget is up for debate, and I was starting to talk about that and said that James Gunn says it wasn't this. Well, again, the next thing that came out, or that thing that came out, even they may have been referring to the reported budget of 225 million being the same, and they're acting like, no, there's no way. So all we have is somebody saying, nah, it didn't happen, right? And then somebody else came along and said, oh, it only cost 100 million to make Supergirl. And then it came back with 125. And it would go up, 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 up. And it got to 170 million. And more recently has been Deadline stated that heard that it was more likely 186 million. Now that's fine. We'll go to 186 million. We'll leave it at 170 million. We'll figure that out. I can multiply it both ways. But they talk about the global marketing. And they said, well, it's 100 million, it's 120 million, or something like that. These are the various reports that we get. So going back to this, the production budget nowadays, and there's a lot of things that come out to try to explain away these things. But the main thing that I have to keep pounding on so that everybody can understand this, if you listen to me, if you watch these projections and these reported budgets, is that back before Wakanda Forever and perhaps one of the Pirates of the Caribbean. When was the last Pirates of the Caribbean? Yeah, Curse on the Black Pearl. Dead Men Tell No Tales, I think, maybe. Pirates of the Caribbean. Got a World's End, On Stranger Tides, Curse of the Black Pearl. Was that the last one? Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales? I don't feel like that was it, but it very well could be. Um, they say the budget was 230 million. Somebody said that they're underreporting. Now I think that Disney began underreporting. I think that they did. But we know around Wakanda Forever time, and Wakanda Forever, Black Panther 2 came out in 2022. So around COVID time and Wakanda Forever, they started saying, "Wait a minute, we're doing a $300 million movie, but we're gonna get, we'll just say, 30% in tax credits. So a third of that in tax credits. So we're gonna say it's 200 million and not 300 million. And then we're going to do reshoots, and we're not going to mention that that's existing in there, and that way they can claim the budget's a lot lower. So the budget is claimed to be 250 million for Wakanda Forever, and I think we know it's a lot more than that. It's one of those things. The same kind of stuff has come out about Deadpool Wolverine. I've heard some people say it was like 500 million to do that, and when I looked it up and researched it, it wasn't quite that high, but it was still a lot higher. So yeah, Deadpool, Wolverine was I want to say 370 million or something. Oh, they did say 537 million here. That's kind of detrimental because if that is really true, then this 1.3 billion dollars worldwide, we haven't factored in the marketing for this. Maybe the marketing's fairly low. I don't know how they spent that much money on that. But anyway, I'm kind of going here and there and everywhere. But when we do this, this is what I'm getting the point of is when we're figuring out these numbers and when we're being told the number, then later on tax documents show up and stuff like that, which is likely to happen for Supergirl. Then and it may take a couple of years though. But Deadpool and Wolverine came out in 2024, a couple of years later, and it's it's the fact that they're going to claim these tax credits first. Okay, they didn't do that before Wakanda Forever and COVID time frame. So everything when you're looking back and you see 2020 and before, the vast majority of those is we're not telling you about any tax credits or anything. We're figuring that in as part of the multipliers that we use when we're analyzing these things. This has to be refigured nowadays because that again, if Superman cost 363 million and if they got 140 something million to bring it down to 220 25 million in tax credits, incentives and rebates or whatever you want to call them, then that's huge, okay? But it's also a huge difference in the multiplying. All right, so tax credits, incentives, and stuff like that is not necessarily a dollar for dollar kind of stuff. It doesn't actually necessarily work that way, um, but it's close. So I'll give that to them. However, until the studios actually come out and produce tax documents and like give them to the people and say, here you go, you can actually look at our books, which I don't think is going to happen because it's probably proprietary stuff. They'll claim, it can't be looked at that way. Um, I would love for just someone to just give a good example and show this is the actual number. This is the taxes we got off of this. This is where we did here, and and ultimately what it made. Therefore, what the box office receipts that were sent to the company are, and stuff like that. And therefore, this is the total outlay of some movie. Pick one, Sinners, or something like that, and just give us some numbers, and then we can start tweaking and fixing these figurations. Because again, we go back to let's just say Batman Begins, and we look at the budget there, and that doesn't include any tax credit things. We're not subtracting anything from it. So we're using that and multiplying it by the same thing that we're multiplying this other number that we subtracted money off of, and we're coming up with a lower number in cases, and that's a problem, because we're not comparing apples to apples now. We've got an oranges thing going on, and a box full of oranges, and we got these apples in the past, and we're saying, look, man, these movies now are doing better than these movies back here. We're not comparing the same thing. We're making mistakes in doing that. And I've got a long list of stuff I'm going to go through, kind of about uh, that comparison in a little bit. It'll be pretty interesting for some people that love numbers and want to see some stuff, historic box office and things like that. Um, but it's right now it's on track to lose a lot of money if its budget is actually higher. Put that in here. If its budget was actually higher, I apparently lost the discussion though at some point here after a little while. But I put in here if its budget was actually higher, what would this be? And it said, well, then you add up that 120 to the other higher budget, let's just say 250 million, and you get a total of 370 million at that point. And if the total box office return was 200 million, and about half of it goes to the studio, then they would then have lost $270 million, and that's pretty interesting. But it did give a break-even target for a $250 million budget of $425 million worldwide to break even. The problem with that is, the big problem with that is now that if, well, the big problem is for whatever reason, AI went askew in trying to figure out these numbers. Because right now we're thinking 170 million plus 120 million, 290 million, maybe 306 if you use the 186, figure. Uh, and could be a little less if you're taking a little less in marketing. It just depends on what numbers you put in there. But we'll go with the 290. Two times the 290 because you're putting the budget plus the production budget plus the marketing budget together. You multiply it by two because the theaters keep half. So a break-even point for that is 580 million. So 425 million is obviously wrong if it's higher on the budget by uh, 80 million or something like that, whatever we said, uh, because that's just our break even point. That's easy to get to. Now, the normal multiplier is take the production budget, multiply it by 2.5. Most movies, you do that to it because that's supposed to include the regular type marketing. Blockbusters supposedly get really big marketing, lots more expensive campaign of marketing. So, therefore, you can add what they report to you and say it's this. But the 2.5 again figure is using that 0.5 to show you the marketing, which would amount to about between 25 and 40, maybe 40, probably 35% uh, of the budget, the production budget, might be put toward marketing for any given regular movie. On the other hand, though, I don't know how much the marketing was for Obsession. The budget's pretty low. Um, but the marketing for it was a couple of commercials, a couple. So I really don't know how much that would have cost them. Um, but they've done well. Obsession. So anyway, that was the goings on for this. Now, what we have with Supergirl though, one of the problems that I find with the movie, and I watched it several times. Okay, it was dark. Okay, there's a darkness to it, a muddiness to the thing, and all of that. There is kind of a lens filter that just darkens the movies. that's the only way you can really describe it. Other people can describe it in other ways and be more colorful in their expressions of how muddy and dark it is. But anyway, there were times when the lighting was in the back and the face was not lit up. The front side was not lit up. You couldn't see. It was done that way, and it doesn't look good. It has a very poor quality to it. It's hard to watch. It's not entirely through the movie and stuff like that, but that kind of stuff is hard to watch. Now, Zack Snyder put out and I think a lot of you are hoping to get to this a lot faster, but Zack Snyder put out a picture, uh, uh, and a statement. I'm going to read the statement. I'm going to put the picture up here, and I'm going to show you what I kind of saw with this and what I remember. I may have to go back and watch Wonder Woman again, which I'm glad to do because it's a great movie. But he put out this image and says, while Wonder Woman has always been an icon, I'm incredibly proud to have played a role in bringing her to life for the first time on the big screen where her story could inspire a new generation. First in Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, and then being a producer and being a big influence on the Wonder Woman movie, which I believe made 870 something million. I don't have those numbers right in front of me. Gal Gadot responded to this, forever grateful. Other people are, saying what they're saying in response to this. But regardless of anything that they're saying, this is not really what I was getting to. And I can't really change anything there. Okay, interesting. That's okay. But checking this picture out, look at the picture. The light is behind. It's somewhat colorful back there and stuff, but there's a darkness all in this area. This is very dark, but this is a beautiful picture. It is very dark. The face is even darkened, but it is a magnificent photograph. It is beautiful. It captures the essence of Wonder Woman. It is amazing. And the movie Supergirl there are so many shots that are much like this as far as there's darkness in the side and there's light behind and there's some color of a ship here and stuff like that there, but it wasn't done well. Zack Snyder did it well. The people in Zack Snyder's orbit doing the marketing and the pictures and stuff like that, that you can check Zack Snyder's uh, photography out and see that he knows how to do this stuff. Okay, but even the movie has a dark a grayness to it after it leaves the Paradise Island and goes to London. It's got this fog and this overshadowing and all that, but it's still magnificently beautiful. It really is. And the fight in the nighttime at the end has these dark shadows, but it's still beautifully shot and presented. Whereas they didn't capture that with Supergirl. Now, I failed to look up the director of photography and to see what other things, are connected with the director of photography there. But regardless of the Supergirl movie, regardless, the fact is, even if they did well in other movies, this one is just not well done. It's just not well done. So that was kind of what I was getting at in this, or looking at in my um in what I saw that I haven't heard anybody else really talk about, is the way that's shaded is just, it's very interesting that it's that way. Let me give you another example just while we're sitting around here. We'll give you a couple seconds here. See the darkness on the front, but that is a beautiful picture. This is just gorgeous. it's not that it's just because it's Justice League, or Zack Snyder's Justice League specifically, but it is a beautiful picture. This is just gorgeous, a gorgeous picture. Um, Now I don't think that they necessarily. Oh, they talk about the Superman and the color grading and stuff like that, and it's kind of washed out or whatever the claim is. Um, well, let's go to this one. Just look at another. Just a beautiful image where there's darkness though, and backlit or whatever. There's still a front lighting for the Superman logo. Um, so I mean, this is the difference between uh, how you present uh, these characters. This is another example. Not completely because it's lit up in a certain way, but there is a darkness to this shadow. There's darkness around it. I think get rid of those things. This image, Hope, down at the bottom, and Superman, extended cape, and all that. I understand it's not, shot in camera necessarily there, um, or it's partially shot in camera as something else. And of course, there's a bunch of Batman examples to this kind of thing, where there's darkness and shadow there, um, and that sort of thing. And let me just see. Well, let's see two examples here. Whoa, come on, where is it? There it is. Let's just look at this one real quick. This is a Batman sort of example, but this is also a better way to light that thing that's somewhat dark, but you put the light on the front so you have something lit up in the front. So we're gonna go back two, uh, or three rather. This one is again the darkness behind it, lit up behind on the other side. Just a beautiful shot, but nothing. Nothing. Well, nothing in the current DCU compares to anything that's been put out there by Zack Snyder. And that's why, and honestly, this is why, or at least in part, it could be a beautifully shot movie, and not a very good story, not a very good concept, and things like that, and just something to throw away. But in this case, these are not good movies that are coming out. That is why the DCU universe is failing. We've already talked about Superman. We've given numbers for that. We'll go over some other numbers in the future here. But right now, kind of leaving it at that. What a beautiful image of Wonder Woman. The fact that, now listen to me, Wonder Woman is the best example. There's all kinds of questions about Captain Marvel and all kinds of controversy on it. That is not a good movie, and you can check it out. Other reviews for that yourself, and the other controversy of empty theaters where it was sold out somehow or near sold out. That's crazy. Um, anyway, check other people out about that. Not me right now. Anyway, uh, but Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman was not the first superhero movie that was a woman, superhero per se. Supergirl, of course, came out in 1984. All right, so this is not the first big screen appearance of a superhero, but it really was the first one done right, and that paid the right respect to the character, and and portrayed the character as a heroic person, a person that uh, deserves that title of being called a superhero. All right. Um, Again, I'm not going to compare it to these other little ones, but for Supergirl, Somebody said this in something I was watching the other day. It was like they keep producing these hero movies of girls, women who are villainous. They're not good women. They're not good role models. They're not good examples. They're they're bad people per se. And they're expecting us to just say, yeah, that's our superhero. Or in this case, they're trying to say this super messy woman is supposed to be a superhero. Um, and I'm not trying to get into a rundown of all the stuff. I was really just sticking with my concept, my idea of the imagery itself. In all the marketing and in the movie does not portray heroicism. There's a couple of shots. It's like, oh, it's almost there. You're like, that was where they were trying to do it, and they didn't do it well. And they were imitating a lot of stuff. A lot of things in the Supergirl movie are stolen from other movies that did that same idea actually better than this. The same thing was done with Eternals, where there's a lot of stuff in that movie that was stolen from better done movies, mostly by Zack Snyder. Uh, just the shots. There's imitation of Zack Snyder in all kinds of films now, which is not necessarily a bad thing, and not necessarily something we would say that you don't get any credit for doing a good job with it. Um, you know, but in this case, they didn't do a good job of any of it. And if they had somebody like me, advising them while on, not exactly on set, but they're showing storyboards and stuff like that, and I say, well, that looks like you're trying to copy Zack Snyder. I said it wouldn't be a problem if you can pull it off, but you probably can't pull it off. So I think it could be, done a little bit different way. The only example I give you is the sun behind Kara, and then she comes in, into the frame in front of the sun, so the sun is then blocked. Finally, is very much, uh, reminiscent of Superman, Man of Steel, and it does not pull it off very well. And the better way to shoot that would have been a sun being at a different angle and her being lit up from the front somehow, and being able to see her. You don't have to reveal her by she's there. And I think that they would have been able to maybe pull that off, and it would have been a lot brighter than all the rest of the movie. And there'd have been something about it that might have resonated in that moment with more people. It wouldn't have changed everything in the movie that way, you know, to the point where we're all going to say, "Oh, this was a great movie." No, it would just be there was this great shot in the movie, and we'd all be able to say that. Right now, we're saying, "Let's see, it's subpar." They were trying to do something that they really didn't succeed, on that. So yeah, they just did whatever they were really trying to do for sure. They unfortunately did not succeed in creating a heroic film, a heroic character, uh, and we can see it in the diminished returns and where we're at with this current universe. Um, and so, whatever comes, I'm looking toward the future. In a few days, I think something's going to happen that'll be really interesting, at least for me. It'll be really interesting, and I think a whole lot of the fandom is going to appreciate. And we won't say what it is right now because if it's postponed, I don't want to be said that I'm giving false hope or something like that. It should be happening. But we'll see you in the next video. I got another several coming up soon, and talk to you about it all then. Bye now.